That happened here?
The meeting of the Monroe Township, or the special meeting of the Monroe Township Board of Education will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have a roll call, Mr. Gorski?
Ms. Antelis.
Here.
Ms. Arminio. Mr. Braverman.
Here.
Mr. Chiarella.
Here.
Mr. Kaufman.
Here.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Here.
Mr. Nothstein.
Here.
Mr. Poi. Mr. Prezioso. Mr. Zarneski.
Here.
Madam Board President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted February 15, 2014, 1 at all schools, 2 Home News Tribune, 3 Cranberry Press, 4 filed with the clerk of the municipality. And at this time, we will go to number 5 on the agenda. And before we do, I just want to read a statement. In accordance with bylaw number 0167, public participation in board meetings, and in order to ensure the efficient administration of the board's business this evening, the public's participation shall be limited at this meeting as follows. Each member of the public who wishes to speak during the public forum, the first public forum, shall have one opportunity to do so, and his or her statement shall be limited to 3 minutes in duration. And there will also be a 1-hour time limit put on the first public forum. This is not going to be a question and answer session, but it is the public's opportunity to voice your concerns or make a statement. The board will listen to all your comments, but will not have a response at this time. I ask that everybody please maintain a reasonable decorum and be respectful of all speakers. So at this time, anyone from the public wishing to speak to the agenda, please come to the microphone and give your name and address for the record. And I ask that each of you coming up to speak, please address all your comments to the chair.
Thank you very much. Ira Tesler, 11 Elliott Drive. First, I would like to thank the Board of Education, Administration, and public for coming out tonight. For the public and the viewers at home, I would like to briefly explain what happened after the conclusion of the February 10th Board of Education meeting. During the meeting, I raised my hand in order to speak at the public forum at the same time somebody else did. What I did was make a halfway hand gesture and put my hand down in order to let someone go first. At the conclusion of the meeting, I was having a nice conversation with Mark Klein and Lou Masters, and Mr. Prezioso interrupted us, made a Nazi hand gesture with his hand, and said, "You're Jewish, you shouldn't raise your hand like that." Initially, I said, "Get out of here," and continued my conversation, then went home. The next day, after talking with my wife and friends, I decided I needed to do the right thing, and following the correct procedure, wrote a letter to the board president. I find it inappropriate and disrespectful for a public official to make a comment like that to a member of the community. If a member of Congress made a comment like this, it would be all over the news. We have an affirmative action officer in the district, and if a staff member made a comment like this, they would be terminated. We have bullying laws for our students, and if a student made a comment like this, they would be disciplined. I realize it is unrealistic to ask Mr. Prezioso to resign, but what I would like is a public apology by the conclusion of tonight's meeting. I'm not doing this because I lost the election. Currently, I do not plan for running the Board of Education again. I'm not doing this for any type of revenge. This is not an action against the Board of Education or any other board member. While I may not agree with everyone on the Board of Education, I do respect their opinions. I am doing this because I feel it is the right thing to do, and even if you disagree with me, I hope you can respect my opinion. In conclusion, I know this is a hot topic, and there may be lots of speakers tonight. I probably won't agree with all of the statements being made. I do encourage everyone to be respectful adults, speak your mind, and if you want to, and speak your mind if you want to, and listen to others while they are speaking. The issue we are here for tonight does need to be addressed, but after the conclusion of this evening, I urge everyone to come together and focus on helping the Board of Education provide the quality education our children deserve. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
How do you do? Richard Gibbons, 415 Schoolhouse. After hearing this, it seems like when some people can't get what they want on the merits, it seems like they always go to the lowest common denominator. In this case, it looks like the race card was thrown down. Now, I've known Mr. Precioso for about 4 years. I campaigned with him. I wouldn't have campaigned with him if I'd ever heard him issue a racial slur, which he has never done. Now, the 8th commandment says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor." And I think this is what's happened here. And I think what's happening here tonight is like a lynch mob, and I think that it's a disgrace. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak?
Jill DeMayo, 48 Linwood Drive. I was very disturbed to hear about the comments that was made after the previous board meeting. As parents, educators, members of the Board of Education, we must set the example for all children in our words and in our actions. This is how we shape children to become the leaders of tomorrow. Anything less is unacceptable. We live in a diverse community where every child has worth regardless of color, religion, academic ability, or sexual orientation. Anything that we do or say that says to a child, "You are worth less than your peers," is unacceptable. When we say such things to other adults, we are also saying them to the children. We must represent the best for the sake of all the children. Thank you.
Alan Kahn, 11 Crenshaw Court. I was very disturbed to hear of the board's actions. I've known Mr. Prezioso for a few years now. I think he has true concern for the children of this community. That's why he ran for the board. That's why I supported him when he ran. When I heard what was happening to him and the way I guess we call them the professional staff, tried to drum up action against him, it hurt me. He's a good man, and I think you're doing the wrong thing. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Lou Masters, 9 Michaela Court. A couple of people asked me if I was going to speak tonight, whether I was going to speak because I was an ex-board member or because I was really good friends with Ira. And I said, of course I'm going to speak. It's none of that. It's that I'm very offended that I witnessed a very nasty act of racism. It's not in dispute. We can all agree that it was done. It's very respectful that he's admitting to it. What was said doesn't matter. To who it was said doesn't matter. If somebody laughed after saying it, which I did not, there's a lie going around that I laughed. We were actually laughing about something else. Doesn't matter. All that matters was what was said. This isn't politics here. This is someone making a hurtful, racially insensitive statement to another human being. I'm also very upset about the response that some people are having. It is not okay because it's a joke. It is not okay because you feel you have been discriminated in the past. It is not okay to perpetuate racism. It is indefensible. Defending it only gives it validity. It festers and spreads. We shouldn't accept it, and we should fight it and root it out at all levels. The board has a couple of things to consider today. One, is this an ethics violation? And if every board member looks on their ethics form, number 5, it talks about disparaging fellow board members or others on a personal, social, racial, or religious basis. 2, is this a policy violation? Everybody has the policy. Number 8465, give you a second if you have it. Hate crimes and bias-related acts, it's a mandatory. And it says, an offense is bias-based and thus constitutes a hate crime if the motive for the commission of the offense or unlawful act, and I'll get to that in a second, is racial, religious, ethnic, or pertains to affectational or sexual orientation or sex. Number 17, harassment, or number 16, disorderly conduct. An act is bias-based and thus constitutes a bias incident if the motive for the commission of the act or unlawful acts is racial, religious, ethnic, or pertains to sexual orientation. And you can read it. It's a state act. The state act also backs it up. 3, is this a good example that we should be setting for our children? Also, I received an email, which I was referenced in. I'm on some group from a Jar Bob, that had a lot of information that seemed very confidential in it. About union stuff matters and some letters to the board. I was curious where that was coming from and if everybody can have access to a lot of that information. There's a good website, the Anti-Defamation League discusses this, adl.org. If you go to there, there's a whole education website and it talks about you shouldn't be joking about people's ethnicities. But just to follow up, I'm very sad about this. I'm sad about what was said. I'm sad that a bias like this still exists in this day and age. And I'm also angry at the response that certain people are trying to defend it. I mean, we talk about we should run the board like a business all the time. That's how we said it last meeting, that we have to watch the piggy bank. If this was a business, every business has a zero tolerance law, he would have been terminated immediately. I actually went down to my HR and I said, if I had said this hypothetically would happen, terminated, no questions asked. So,
Thank you, Mr. Masters.
that's my 2 cents.
Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak? Okay, seeing no one, we will close the public forum. Go to closed session resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of Monroe hereby moves to go into closed session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10:4-6 through 10:4-21, to discuss the following subject. The board will retire to closed session to discuss a matter falling within the attorney-client privilege, specifically the comments allegedly made by a board member to a member of the public subsequent to the adjournment of the Board of Education meeting on February 10th, 2014, and the unauthorized release of confidential information, and to receive attorney advice on the aforementioned matters. The discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public at such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Ms. Antelis?
Second.
Second by Mr. Kaufman. All in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Okay, at this time, the motion is carried and the board will go into closed session. I really have no idea how long this will take, but we will give you updates as we go along in there. At this time, the Board of Education will reconvene into public session. And I believe Mr. Gorski has a resolution to read.
Thank you. It is recommended the Board of Education hold in abeyance the matter involving board member Anthony Precioso's alleged comments to a member of the public subsequent to the close of the board meeting on January 15th, 2014, and the matter of the alleged release of confidential information, pending further action of the board at its meeting scheduled for March 17th, 2014, in order to provide Anthony Precioso an opportunity to consult with an attorney.
Is there a motion? And
So
a
moved.
second? I second. Mr. Nothstein, Ms. Arminio, any comments or questions? Ms. Antelis?
Just want to let everybody know, I will not support this. I think what happened, I don't believe it was a malicious action by Mr. Precioso. I think it was a very bad choice. Nazism, Hitler, the Holocaust is not a joke. I think anybody who thinks it is, writes that it is wrong and really needs to take a look at history. I have been with the Henry Rickless Holocaust Committee for about 5 years. I have done interviews with Holocaust survivors. I've had to stop those interviews because all of us were crying. The cameraman, myself. These are horrible stories. It's not a joke. And I think the worst part of all of this is when this happened, Mr. Precioso, you didn't even think that you did anything wrong, okay? And you did. That is a terrible thing to say, not even to a Jewish person, to any person. To refer to Hitler, to even mention, I'm sorry, I'm very sensitive. I've been through the last year researching my family and found out that my grandfather's brothers and sisters were killed. They were part of the first massacre in the Ukraine.
Ms.
I'm very
Antelis?
sensitive to this, so I'm going to vote no on this.
Anybody else? Okay, roll call.
Ms. Antelis,
No.
Ms. Arminio,
Yes.
Mr. Braverman,
No.
Mr. Chiarella. Yes. Jamesburg representative is not eligible to vote on this resolution. Mr. Kaufman. Yes. Mr. Nothstein.
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
No.
Madam Board President, motion passes.
Okay. Then at this time on our agenda, we'll go to number 7, public forum. Anybody wishing to speak, please come to the agenda, please come to the microphone, not the agenda, and please give your name and address for the record.
Lisa Weinthal, 10 McFarland Circle, Monroe. Mr. Precioso, I wasn't there when
Please
this...
address all your comments to the chair.
I can't, my letter says that. I was not there when the event occurred. But I do know that no one kids about Hitler or the Holocaust. No one uses phrases or makes statements about another person's religion that are hurtful, demeaning, or derogatory in as casual and offhand a manner as you seemingly did. These remarks may in fact underscore your own personal views, and you're clearly comfortable and equally complacent about making prejudicial and biased remarks. Perhaps this is second nature to you behind closed doors, but in public, it's disgusting and offensive. We expect our leaders to know how to filter their words at a minimum. We expect you to stand up against anti-Semitism and not condone or support speech like this. I turn to our Board of Education, who has the obligation to implement the zero tolerance policy and ethical requirements for board members, as well as the code of conduct required of our students under the harassment, intimidation, and bullying policy. I know of this policy firsthand, as one of my own children was the victim of anti-Semitic slurs. The student was dealt with swiftly and surely. He was suspended from school for several days. Vigilance by our Board of Education and Administration against this type of racist and anti-Semitic commentary made by one of their own requires the same swift and sure actions. Zero tolerance is zero tolerance. Whether it's for a student who may have warranted the benefit of doubt due to age, or to our leadership, who should be held to the higher standards and should know better. These slurs and comments reflect on each of you as well and shows the measure of your commitment to do the right thing for yourselves and the community. Do not disrespect this school, the teachers, students, or your commitment to adhere to the higher standards by allowing racial slurs of any sort to be accepted. Ironically, our 8th graders today in the middle school have just handed in an essay on tolerance for intolerance. Their assignment was to identify the meaning of the quote, tolerance for intolerance, provide a relevant personal story, and then look at the larger world around them to see where tolerance for intolerance exists. You are all accountable to show our children that tolerance for intolerance will not exist in Monroe Township schools. I am personally holding this board to task to send the message that tolerating prejudice in any form by condoning and enduring the hatreds, attitudes, and bigotries of others will be dealt with swiftly and surely at all levels in this community, and that is not just applied to our students. I ask you to do the right thing. Zero tolerance.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Good evening to you all. My name is
Please?
Don Nocita, 80 Riviera Drive. Tonight, I've listened to people stand up here in front of you and articulate their reasons for their concerns. And in many of those instances, I respect their points of view. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I respect them to have their points of view. I'm going to say something now that hasn't been said that maybe some people are thinking about, because I know I am. And that is, from the beginning, from the claimant's remarks to where we are now, maybe there's an underlying point of view that some people may not care for Anthony's points of view or his opinions or his votes on the board. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Maybe you don't necessarily like his points of view, or maybe you do. I don't know the answers to that, to those questions. But if this goes down the road, and Anthony is no longer on the board, I get very concerned about that, because you'd be overturning an election. And that's essentially saying my vote doesn't count, that my vote can get put in the trash, along with others that voted for Anthony. So I would ask you to ultimately still do the right thing and look at both sides of all of this. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing no one, we will close public forum. Our next scheduled Board of Education meeting will be Monday, March 17th, 2014 at 7:00 p.m. at the Monroe Township High School, which is the adoption of the tentative budget. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Kaufman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Notstein. All in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Meeting is adjourned.